It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi. Welcome to a Friday.
Happy Friday.
All right.
What?
Well, I mean, some of our listeners are getting antsy because they saw this story and said, you haven't covered it yet. All right. We need to make sure we cover the crossroads of politics and rock and roll.
Yeah. All right.
Canadian musician Neil Young has voiced concern that he may not be able be allowed to re-enter the United States after his upcoming European tour due to his criticism of U.S. President Donald Trump. Where's the downside here? Where's the downside?
Is anybody complaining about that possibility?
Well, Neil Young, the 79-year-old musician, spoke out about his fears that the Trump administration could bar him from returning to the United States in a post on his Neil Young Archives website on Tuesday.
Isn't Neil Young Archives? Isn't everything from him archives? I'm just asking questions.
When I go to play music in Europe, if I talk about Donald J. Trump, I may be one of those returning to America who is barred or put in jail to sleep on a cement floor with an aluminum blanket.
Is that what he's complaining about, his bed? He's worried about the bed, not so much being detained.
That's right, folks. If you say anything bad about Trump or his administration, you may be barred from re-entering the United States. If you are a Canadian, if you are a dual citizen like me, who knows? Well, no, you're an American citizen.
Right.
So shut up. I want to play victim.
They really love doing that.
They really do. But I love it. How he's got to take it to the next level. It's not just I'm going to be barred. No, I'm going to be put in jail to sleep on a cement floor with an aluminum blanket.
I'd love for Holman to come out and go, it'd be illegal, but we might think about this. It's silly.
Holman says, no, I'm putting him in jail because I'm a Crosby, Stills, Nash Young fan. Maybe he'll do I want a personal concert for myself.
I'm going to be a victim. All right. Okay, fine.
As Neil Young has done many times in the past, he did not hold back about his feelings on Trump. If the fact that I think Donald Trump is the worst president in the history of our great country could stop me from coming back, what does that say for freedom? I love America and its people and its music and its culture. Remember freedom of speech? And this applies to what?
Nothing.
Do they ever make any sense?
They don't have to.
Does anybody except us have to articulate precisely what we mean?
It's art, Gary.
Is it just Red Eye Radio that's held to these standards of accuracy?
Probably.
And not just accuracy, coherency.
Well, it's... And then I see at the CBC, in relation to the story, a wave, Gary, a wave of artists are considering tours over U.S. border detention fears. They're reconsidering their tours. You better not leave the U.S.
Wow. Oh, no. Is it going to keep that Siberian orchestra from coming Christmas time?
You mean the trans one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
They're coming from Siberia.
You think people show up at that concert confused? It says
Probably.
trans. I don't. I mean, I see long hair, but
I'm not going to one of those shows.
yeah.
By the way, just so people know, in case you don't know, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra was actually formed in Tampa. Actually,
Right.
no. Where I go visit all the time.
What,
Where I
New
go
York?
visit the Two Frogs Brewery in Tarpon Springs.
Ah.
The genesis of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which was the heavy metal band Sabotage, first show was in a roller rink in Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Yeah, all right.
That a couple of years ago, when I was there with Jerry and Mary, I said, you got to go by the roller rink. Like, what are you talking about? I'm in the back seat. There. Come on. I'm hitting, we got to go. Why?
Yeah.
I just want to see where Trans-Siberian started.
Right.
So Tampa's where they actually started, but so many of them are actually from New York City. If you see so many of them, because they pick from Broadway and all that other stuff.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is let's see. The thing is, you can tell here the virtue signaling of being a victim that Neil Young is trying to promote. When he said, for example, I may be one of those returning to America who is barred or put in jail to sleep on a cement floor with an aluminum blanket. That's right, folks. If you say anything bad about Trump and his administration, you may be barred from entering the United States. And then he did the whole thing with freedom of speech. And then it seems to me that if you voted for Kamala Harris over Trump, that makes it possible for you to go to jail or be detained, punished in some way for not showing allegiance to what? Now, is any of that based on accuracy? Or did David Crosby, in his will, leave him all the drugs that he stopped using decades ago in a box?
I don't know. Would it fit in a box? I'm just asking questions.
It seems to me that if you voted for Kamala over Trump. Now, wait a minute. Is he saying if you're an illegal immigrant and got to vote for Kamala Harris over Trump, you may be deported out of the country or something? I don't know, because if you voted for Kamala Harris, you're an American citizen.
Right.
Is any of this based in any type of reality? Any of it?
No.
I'll read it again. Then it seems to me that if you voted for Kamala Harris over Trump, that makes it possible for you to go to jail or be detained, punished in some way for not showing allegiance to what? How spineless is that? I have no idea what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, and then this, so Canadian, it's Canadian CBC, they've got the story on the wave of artists, and all the other ones are just Canadian artists that I'm not familiar with. Allie Hazelwood, they're talking about a wave of artists reconsider their tours, right?
Who are the bands?
So, Allie Hazelwood, I don't know her.
Never heard of her.
Right. A duo, sisters, Cassie and Maggie McDonald of the group Cassie and Maggie.
Never heard of them.
No. UK Subs?
Never heard of them. And I know Canadian music.
Yeah, I that was it. Is that a wave? Does that constitute a wave?
Well,
maybe in Canada it does. I don't know. I don't.
A ripple.
Yeah. Well, in trucking, that wouldn't even be a convoy. So, I don't know. And then, a wave of musicians, poets, and novelists. Okay, well, now you've got a point. Poets and novelists. When you bring poets and novelists into it, Wow.
Okay, Shania Twain is touring
Yeah, she's Canadian.
the U.S. in 2025. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I'm going to see at the Riviera Theater in July
Mm-hmm.
Kim Mitchell from the band Max Webster from Canada.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So he's touring, which
I
is
think I saw Brian Adams. I don't know if he's in the States right now. Brian Adams was on the road. He was on tour. Yeah. I don't know that this constitutes a wave. Again, in the article, they fold in poets and novelists. If you have to fold in poets and novelists with the musicians to constitute a wave, it's a stretch. The poets, it just reminds me of So I Married an Axe Murderer. Harriet! It's, you know, and by the way, the poets are touring? They're on tour? What? I'm sorry. Really? I'm hanging out with the wrong people. I'm clearly not hanging out with the cool people. I didn't know poets in concert were a thing.
poets in the round.
Well, going back to So I Married an Axe Murderer, the whole, hip coffee shop thing, right?
Oh, by the way, and he is Canadian.
Yes, he is. Speaking of Canadians.
Exactly.
Now, if Mike was doing that poetry from that movie on tour, I would go see that. If Mike Myers was doing that.
Okay, I'm looking at concerts coming to Dallas, and I'm sorry, don't pay attention to me when it comes to Canadian artists because I don't recognize any of the American artists that are playing.
Yeah. Same. Yeah, that's true.
I never heard
a lot
of
of
them.
the current artists I have no idea. So
who are they? Who
it
are
doesn't,
they?
You're right.
There is tonight Staying Alive, one night of the Bee Gees. So it's some, I guess, cover group.
All right, tribute band.
That just came up as I'm
one
looking.
night of the Bee Gees.
One night of the Bee Gees.
You only get one night. But if they're on tour, it's multiple nights.
Yeah, I'm just scanning through. Wow, there's a lot of groups that play Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm scanning down. I'm not even past this weekend yet. And I've
Right.
gone through like 50 different shows at clubs, whatever. What I need to do is put poets in there.
Poets currently on tour.
Poets on tour.
Yeah. Oh, seriously.
There it is. The Nantucket Poem Tour.
There you go. The one poem they can't finish.
Exactly. It once was a man from Nantucket.
Exactly. Yeah.
United States is gone. There may be a lack of
Or that one poem
poetry tours
by the late Gilbert Gottfried, The Aristocrats. Another one that can't tour. For the same reason. Yeah.
Oh, and he's no longer with us, too.
Yeah,
That may be a...
Well, that's why I said late, by the late.
Oh, you said the late. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Not that he isn't on time. It means he's dead, is what that means. To repeat, Gilbert Gottfried is dead. I think he would laugh at that moment.
He would. That's the whole point. He would die laughing.
Yeah.
When he started his podcast, I watched it. Completely different off stage than he was on stage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What a nice guy.
Yeah.
Really, what a nice guy.
Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine.
It was the opposite of Bob Saget.
Yeah.
The late Bob Saget.
Yeah.
Who was, nice guy persona, on TV. And then in his stand-up, it was like, it wasn't mean, but it was a little blue.
Yeah. But the nicest guy off stage.
Yeah.
He was, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sad. Both of those were sad.
Really sad.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howe's Products. Tested, trusted, Guaranteed since 1920.
Last month, within USDA's latest forecast for Florida's all-orange crop,
forecast for 2024-2025 marketing year is 522,000 tons, down 35% from last season.
leads to this possibility, according to Catherine Weber of the Economic Research Service.
If realized, this Florida orange crop would be the smallest in 95 years.
What's behind the latest decrease of the Sunshine State's orange crops?
In October 2024, Hurricane Milton caused millions of dollars of damage in Florida's prime citrus-producing counties. The storm dealt a further blow to the Florida citrus industry, already beset with challenges from the devastating botanical disease known as citrus greening.
In terms of impacts to Florida's orange juice industry,
With fewer oranges this year, U.S. orange juice production forecast is expected to fall to its lowest since the early 1970s. Beginning orange juice stocks are lower this season. Domestic orange juice prices have continued to climb, and ERS expects orange juice imports to rise higher this year than last year.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Tammy writes to us on X saying, I'm not kidding. I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump has no idea who Neil Young is.
That's a great point, Tammy. Breaking news. Donald Trump is learning who Neil... I could see him saying that. Neil Young, I don't know who that is. Who's that?
Somebody will ask him the question. What do you think about Neil Young thinking that you're going to jail him when he comes back from his European tour?
Yeah.
What the hell's Neil Young?
Who's Neil Young?
That'd be the best answer. You know, speaking of summer concerts, you and I were just laughing how so many of the classic rock bands of today, there's no members left. I saw last week Leonard Skinner, Molly Hatchet, and the Outlaws.
Yeah.
Like, well, Leonard Skinner has no original members left. There's no original members of Molly Hatchet. They're a cover group, and there's only one member left of the Outlaws, Henry Paul from the band Blackhawk, the country band Blackhawk. That's it. So out of the three bands, there's only one person of it.
Right, I saw the Four Tops and the Temptations. What? It's like, it's like Buddy Holly on tour. Well, no. No.
Well, the thing is, though, if you go back far enough, a lot of the groups that, because I watched it again the other day when I was doing stuff, the Wrecking Crew documentary was on.
Yeah.
And just one of the best documentaries ever. That the majority of the music that you heard in the 60s was not done by the bands.
Right.
The record that you hear was not the bands that you saw.
Right.
It was a Wrecking Crew that included Glenn Campbell, Tommy Tedesco.
That went on for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
People would be surprised how many 80s bands that actually was the case for, where, by the time you got to, the stage, right, the people that were on stage, it was like those weren't the people that played on the album.
And they actually, the record companies would have the Wrecking Crew do a song, and then they'd create the band.
Yeah.
They'd find four people and say, okay, you're in this band, learn how to play the instruments, and we're going to send you on tour.
Oh, yeah.
But the record was actually done by some of the best musicians ever on the planet,
right?
Which was the Wrecking Crew, which some of the interviews with Glenn Campbell, because he was a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when he became famous, all of his hits, the Wrecking Crew were backing him on it.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
go with what you know.
Yeah. And it's just like, you think about it, it's like, well, it's like Milli Vanilli. It was like, well, Wrecking Crew, well, we were doing that a long time before they did it.
Right. Yeah.
And, they had at times 10 songs on the charts at one time, all different artists. It was all the Wrecking Crew. Now, they might have found some of the artists to do the vocals on it, though.
Oh, sure. Yeah. The artists who were singing,
Right.
Exactly.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Rhode Island Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You know, I'm sitting here reading that OPEC drastically increasing the oil output, and I'm reading CNBC. OPEC plus is bullish and appeasing Trump.
Yeah.
Because I look at it, and my first thought was tariffs are going to make it much more expensive to drill for oil in the United States. That's one of the things that was brought up a few weeks ago. And I just wonder, is OPEC attempting to flood the market with oil so it becomes less profitable for the oil companies in the United States with the tariffs to go after it? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, I think so. That's typically been their game.
Because they say Trump is putting pressure on OPEC to reduce oil prices, which reduces global energy prices to help offset the inflationary impact of his tariffs. Was the analysis on it. OPEC officials have denied that the move was made to appease Trump. You know, it's like we talked about the other day that the administration been talking about how eggs have gone down in price. One of the major reasons that eggs have gone down in price
Imports.
We've been importing eggs.
Yeah. He, in fact, at the announcement on the tariffs the other day, he actually took a moment to recognize the ag secretary. And he says, it says to her, you're doing a really great job. You really brought those egg prices down, and they're going to keep coming down. And I thought, no. The reason they're coming down is because they're bringing eggs in from all over the world. So that's actually going to be not the case. Brooke Rollins. And I guess we'll see. Ooh, are eggs going to be exempt? Exempt. See what I did there?
Looking, European markets down, Asian markets down.
Yeah.
Overnight. Looking at the Dow futures. The Dow down 431 right now. Yesterday dropped almost Dow dropped almost 1,700 points, the biggest drop since COVID.
Yeah,
I forgot what I believe it was a day in March where it fell like $2,900. That's when they just shut down everything.
Yeah,
and in that quarter that was shut down, remember, our GDP dropped 32%, I believe it was, wasn't it?
Right.
Just for that quarter. Then it came
just
back
for that
up.
quarter, yeah.
Right.
I think actually it's for that month. I think it was.
Was
the
it
month
for that
of,
month?
I think it was the month of March. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Or April. Maybe it was April. Because I don't think the full
maybe.
effects went until April.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. That was like a century ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
I'm telling you, it's moving quick. Now the Dow down 437. Just 2 minutes ago, it was down like 370. S&P futures down 0.93%. NASDAQ down 0.71. Oil is down 3.38% to 64.69. So hopefully I'll see that in my local gas stations that were still stubbornly at 309 last night.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. We wonder whether the markets were tempered here in the United States by the fact that Trump said he's willing to negotiate. And
I guess it's whether or not I don't guess. It is whether or not the markets believe it, but also it's what they say this morning. Because the question will be now back to Levitt, right?
Right.
They'll go back to her today saying, okay, you said this yesterday here, and then after that, the president said the opposite.
Yeah, Trump, it says the headline, Trump opened to tariff negotiations, contradicting White House aides.
Yeah. And so keep in mind, Levitt's not out there speaking for Levitt. Levitt doesn't have a different opinion. In fact, has no opinion. She's given the talking points every day and speaks for the president in that press conference. So today, that has to be the first question, if not one of the first. And that will drive the markets depending on, up or down, depending on what she says.
What happened yesterday, because the auto tariffs were expected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the stopping production in Canada and Mexico.
Yeah.
Some of the automobile companies did. Then you had the one, was it the Chevy Trucking Company that's adding overtime for Chevy trucks? But then you had 5 different Midwest American auto plants laying off. 900 people, I think it was. So that's
because of the tariff on parts.
I would assume that's what it is. Yeah, because they view it now on the truck side. I don't know, what that is, what their orders are or what they're looking at.
Right.
But it would be expected, since automobile parts, because people should understand, no car is made in America.
Not 100%.
Right.
Right.
It's assembled in America.
Mm-hmm.
Well, probably the majority of the parts come from all around the world.
Right.
We go back to looking at, and this goes back maybe 10 years. It goes back to probably 2016, 2017. And the analysis that was done, for example, on the iPhone, which there was, screaming, the iPhone is assembled in China, and that's horrible. And then it broke it down, and it said, well, it's assembled in China.
Mm-hmm.
But the parts come from, it was like 68 different companies produce parts. This is whatever iPhone was popular back in 2016, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
It's assembled in China, but 68 different companies, including like 20 in the United States, all produce parts for it. And so all those parts, move around, and the final assembly is in China.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's shipped back to the United States. So all those companies make a profit. The plant that assembles it in China makes a profit, but who makes the most profit on it? It was Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Apple made, I think it was like 50% of the profit. And that's why the supply chains, because the administration is trying to make it sound like the supply chains can change like this, and they can't.
No. The trade routes, establishing new trade routes is difficult. But then going back to old trade routes, after you do that, there has to be a great incentive. Now, being the massive economy, that's the greatest incentive here in the U.S. But as you stated yesterday, we're not greater than all of the others combined. And so if they're forced to do this, and this is apparently what's going on, other nations work together to find trade deals between each other. If they can't control the U.S., then they control what they can.
Well, it was like Peter Schiff said the other day. He said, Nike isn't moving a plant back to the United States. That's not happening.
No.
Even with the 40% tariff, it'd be more expensive to produce those sneakers in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going to happen is they're going to expand their trade deals with everybody else in the world, sell fewer sneakers in the United States for a higher price.
Right.
Peter Schiff was analyzing that the other day.
Right.
On it. I'm going to make sure we get this story out there. President Trump confirmed that multiple employees within the National Security Council were fired yesterday, adding to National Security Advisor Mike Waltz's recent political woes that have snowballed since Democrats first slammed him over March's Signal chat leak. Always, we're going to let go of people we don't like, or people we don't think can do the job, or people who may have loyalties to somebody else, Trump said on Air Force One when asked about the reports on the NSC firings. Trump confirmed that NSC members had been fired, but remarked it was not many individuals. The other thing is the Pentagon Inspector General is now looking into Signalgate. We thought that would happen.
Yeah.
I think you were out the day that it came out where Secretary of Defense Hegseth said nothing was classified. And that got a lot of pushback because anybody who remembers the whole, I almost said Monica Lewinsky, jeez, Hillary Clinton laptop situation, when we talked about it, something is assumed when you have, and we said he looked really bad there. When Hegseth said that looked extremely amateurish, because when you are planning an attack or discussing an attack, any documents that are produced are automatically assumed to be classified.
Right.
And any assessment, even if it is a generalized assessment, is assumed to be classified until it goes through the system to find out whether it stays classified or not.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a ton of pushback on that one from intelligence experts saying that really looked bad for Hegseth. That was actually his worst moment when he said that.
Right.
Because that's part of what we say.
Well, the only thing you can say in that moment is we don't know how this happened, but we're going to get to the bottom of it. That's the only thing you can't say.
Right.
And that's not a good thing to say. You don't ever want to be in that moment, but you're there. You're at that point. You're already there.
Now you should have said, "Look, it was a mistake," which obviously it was a mistake.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to find out how it happened.
Right.
There will be a thorough investigation to make sure, and also we will take whatever measures we need to ensure this doesn't happen ever again.
Yeah.
And that's the IG has to do what the IG does. That was always going to get to the IG's desk.
We said it when it happened.
Yep.
We said the IGs will look into this.
It's going to happen. And you can't, because what Hegseth was trying to do in that moment was debate it. There is no putting lipstick on that pig. You can't make that something it's not.
No.
And it's not a good look either way when you say, we don't know how it happened, but we will find out and we'll make sure it never happens again. But you keep it close. That's as brief as that covers everything, and you don't need to get into the debate. The reporter, from the Atlantic, he went on, what was he on? Was he on NPR? He went on and said, look, I'm not forced to, but I'm certainly not going to discuss the details of everything that was talked about, that was discussed in that thread, because I just wouldn't do that for the sake of national security. Now, again, that could be boasting by that reporter. That could be some kind of just positioning for himself, to the virtue signaling approach in that, or it could be accurate. It could be accurate, spot on for that moment in that, you know what? Wow, I saw some stuff I really shouldn't have. And quite frankly, he did. He shouldn't have been there.
Don't you find interesting the president's comments, though? People we don't like,
Mm-hmm.
and then people who may not have loyalty towards us,
Mm-hmm.
which goes back to, is that what happened? Was there somebody inside of that may have been a civil servant in there
Mm-hmm.
that just went from one administration to the other?
And boom.
Right.
And next thing you know, he's on that thread.
Because that's what I wonder when the president said that.
I said that. I actually said that at the beginning. Could it be somebody who's a holdover from the Biden administration? I said that early.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, just reading this here. 90% of Americans don't sleep through the night.
I know I don't. But our production crew does. And that's That's the good news.
You know,
At least some of us do.
they say 1 in 5 Americans, 20% only get 4 to 5 hours sleep.
Yeah.
25% use over-the-counter prescription or sleep aids. It's got to be more.
And the other 75% are lying.
Well, the largest finding revealed 89% of U.S. adults wake up regularly during the night. Well, who doesn't?
Yeah. I think,
But, you know, as it comes to how many hours you sleep, some people need less.
yeah, I get about 4 or 5 hours a day, and I'm good.
Trump needs, like, I don't know, 37 minutes.
I think he just takes a long blink. It's not even a nap. It's just a long blink. And
a
he's
yawn,
good.
a
It's
yawn and a blink, and he's done.
Exactly.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.